When it comes to writing, anyone can write. It's really about learning how to write to a market because there's so many different versions of it.
Welcome back, everybody, to the 52 Launch Podcast. I'm Evan. I'm going to be kind of stepping in for Dan and Pete. Here with me is Sarah. We're kind of here, a part of the marketing department here at 52 Launch. You kind of have known me behind the camera. I'm the person that Dan and Pete are always talking to and everything. I run the podcast side of things. Sarah is our in-house copywriter and everything. Sarah, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Sarah. I've been doing the copywriting here since around January, and they brought me in-house in May. So I work a lot with the website copy. I've been working a lot with the Amazon copy, Instagram, Facebook, anywhere that really needs writing. I've been working on.
Yeah, so we're kind of going to go down more what is in Sarah's wheelhouse. My background is more in marketing analytics and everything. I started a small business kind of focusing on brand development and kind of content strategies. And we brought Sarah in to ultimately do this copywriter side of things. There's a lot of kind of mystery behind what a copywriter is, what they do, et cetera, et cetera. And this copywriter is different from the copywriter that, does word marks and such. Sarah is not an attorney. She writes more of the emotional paragraphs and sentences that we use both in advertisement, but also in print and website copy and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so if you're going to go and Google copyright versus copyright, you're going to come up with copyright with a W and copyright with an R. And I'm with the W. I come up with the creative kind of language that we're going to use to describe a lot of our products and to really try to get those products to resonate with the target customer. We come up with that target customer throughout a creative brief, trying to figure out who is most likely going to buy that product for our clients. And from there, we really just got to come across with the emotion and try to connect a person to an object, which is, I think, really interesting because you're kind of breaking down the psychology behind people. So especially when you're going into different mediums or channels like Facebook and Instagram, you're really getting to know people and how they work and how they buy products. But taking a step back, going over how someone can even get into copyright. I started off in journalism. I wanted to be working with broadcast writing. So I focused on broadcast writing for 5 years of my life. And it's so different than writing a website or writing an Instagram caption, which are so much, I don't want to say harder, but they can be harder because you're trying to target someone where broadcast is just getting your point across.
So this might be me being arrogant, but when you go to school, can you go to school directly to be like a general copywriter, or would it be more of like an English degree or journalism?
Yeah, so journalism is definitely the path that they tell you to kind of go. I chose to do marketing as my minor, and I told my professors, I was like, hey, I don't know if journalism is really going to be for me. And they were like, well, writing is super, super important no matter what avenue you choose to go. And they turned out to be very correct because I did not end up in journalism. But when it comes to the schooling portion of it, really any major can get you into copyright. I do have a friend who got his MBA in copyright and works for a really amazing advertising agency. So you can get your MBA in it. You can get your bachelor's in it. It's like, God.
You're the one that went, not me.
Yeah. So, but really it's more about I think the feeling of it, because when it comes to writing, anyone can write. it's really about learning how to write to a market, because there's so many different versions of it. When you're a copywriter, you have to be persuasive, but at the same time engaging. You can't be too salesy, or else someone's going to look at that and be like, oh, well, they don't know what they're doing clearly, so why would I want to buy that product?
I guess add in here, not to say that you can't be a salesy copywriter, but what we do at 52 Launch is more create the face of a product that the average everyday consumer is going to use. We're not Our products are not often targeted at other business owners or businesses themselves, so we don't really go super into the sales jargon. When we're talking with our personal clients that are producing or that we're making these products for, that's when that salesy jargon can more come in handy. But as Sarah said, she more plays on the playful side and how to really sell up the product in a way that seems organic instead of more numbers and kind of shove it in your face based.
Mm-hmm. You could take example, writing for an Instagram caption versus writing for an advertisement on Instagram. An Instagram caption, you want it to be fun, you want it to be light, but you still want it to kind of show up organically. And then an ad, you want it to be straight to the point. You're selling the product. You want someone to buy that product for you.
Yeah, and I mean, there is also occasionally the opposite. Everything in marketing, there's the opposite will work for a few things. Sometimes, or I would say majority of the time, for ads, the more salesy jargon does make sense. You just get to the point, tell you what the product is. Other products, it's more of like what I would say is like an educational period, where you're trying not necessarily to sell the product, but give information about the issue that the product solves. There might be other things that just playful text could get someone to click through. Like if it's a kid's item, obviously targeting kids online and all that kind of stuff, it's a little bit more difficult and you can't really collect their data. But if you're trying to sell a product targeted at kids in general, you can do a little bit more playful text and all that kind of stuff. Or you're targeting the parent of a kid, might do kind of a mismatch of what a parent would want to hear, but also what they think a kid would want to hear.
So it definitely is going to depend on your product and exactly what you said with kid versus parent, your target audience. So there are some tips that I want to go over when it comes to copyright, because it's really hard to distinguish between just being a good writer and being a marketing copywriter. So when you're doing a good marketing copywriter, you want to make sure that you're always starting with an idea before you're jumping into that execution. You don't want it to just sound good. It has to say something to your target audience. So a good example of this is a progressive ad. Progressive is kind of boring, their insurance, so it's very difficult to make that engaging to an audience. So a great thing that they do is they have their ad saying becoming your parent, which is everyone's fear. No one wants to become their parent, so that's really engaging. And then Progressive is here to help you with that. So that's the point, that Progressive is going to help you figure out insurance without it sounding super and boring, like what I just said. And then you're going to get into your step 2. So always selling benefit on a specific point. So you want to make sure that you're differentiating your product. There's so many different products out there that are oversaturating the market. A great example of this is makeup. So there's so many different makeup brands you could think of, but what's the most popular makeup brand, Evan?
I can't answer. My wife probably could, not me.
It's Maybelline.
Okay.
Maybelline. Maybelline is super important, super memorable, just because maybe she's born with it, maybe it's Maybelline.
Oh yeah, okay.
You have the slogan in there, and it has its name in there, so it's really easy for that brand to really stick out, and that's just copy. That's just copywriting that made that brand so popular.
And also to interject here, I think there's a very strong diversion. Here at 52, we really focus on online sales and online channels. So when we're talking about ads and everything, sometimes we'll look at TV ads and such, but ultimately the audience that still watches cable is oftentimes not the most active audience online. So in our experience, it's better to go purely on an online channel, and some of our big products have scaled up to be on various channels and on TV in general. But talking about like the progressive stuff, that might do really well on TV, might do really well online. I think they ran it in both places. I'm not really sure about the numbers exactly, but it is a good ad. But it's ultimately, who does that speak to? And that's something that I would say you always have in the back of your head, is like thinking we're selling to like an online audience. So both in terms of what we want said in a video is impactful, and then also the text that's around an ad or a social post. So it's kind of understanding the market. And Progressive, I think, is a good example because they do market on most channels. I think they're on YouTube and everything now, and they've been on TV forever now.
Yeah. I think that goes with our generation, is we're so used to seeing things digitally that it's hard to think about print and commercial copy as much, and reading it on your phone digitally is a lot different than when you're hearing it. Like Maybelline, maybe hearing it is different. But yeah, so differentiating is very important.
Sorry. No, I just want to add on to the differentiating. It's really interesting to try and sell a product like that, because ultimately some of the best performing products on the market you've taken a stock item and you've added on a couple features that stock item just should have had from the get-go. And suddenly you're better than the original brand. So being able to sell up your each individual selling points, like Sarah was talking about, and breaking it down in such a way, you're not only trying to do this for a new product, but even if you're in an already super saturated market, be it like makeup, like Sarah said, be it in car parts, or I'm just thinking of various, like even apps in general. There's an app that does everything nowadays. Trying to differentiate yourself from another app that does the same thing really requires some clever marketing. And like I'm thinking like investment apps in particular, like each one seems to have their own little thing that they do more than the other. So how do they sell up that one point? So I do think like using the slogans like Maybelline and everything really makes sense there. Or be it Progressive, like what is their end message there, could be really interesting.
Yeah. So there's definitely different ways of going about that brand awareness when it comes to that copy. But then the last point is just writing as much as you possibly can. When I go through my copy, I'll write a page of copy and then I'll leave it alone. I'll go back the next day. I'll read it. I'll be like, this is horrible. And then I'll write it again. And usually the second time is horrible too. It's just all about what is going to come across sounding the best, and having even multiple pairs of eyes on it works really good, even if you're a great writer. And I'm not going to say I'm a great writer. I have experience, but I think that
Sarah you can constantly undersells herself.
You can always get better in whatever you're doing. But yeah, having second pairs of eyes, even if they're not writers, is always the best way to go about things.
Yeah, and like this is something that I've noticed that you're now understanding that better, is the integration of the product information, but also what marketing should have. So obviously it's something that now you're sitting down with each one of our clients and trying to get as much information and you're kind of taking what are their big selling points and what are your big selling points as someone on the marketing team, and how can you smash them together in a pretty way that the public's gonna like.
Yeah, exactly.
Which takes a load of skill to do.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much work that goes into just writing something. Like even coming up with a sentence can take forever, and what I'm writing might be seen completely different from what someone else is reading. So that's why we do go through it with our clients, to make sure that I'm really getting the emotional piece from them and I'm really understanding their product, because there's two pieces to it. It's really understanding the product and understanding who you're targeting. So making sure that your audience is going to understand that product in the way that your client wants them to.
Yeah, for sure. I think that bridge is a very hard thing to do.
Yeah.
I would like to say if that like any marketing firm has that secret formula, they're like the biggest person in the industry.
Yeah.
But
It's not set in stone like any math formula you could ever have. It's feeling people out. And
yeah, so I mean, I'm coming from more analytical side. When we're writing copy for like the ads and everything and having those multiple different drafts, we might start with one version of the copy that we think is doing really well. We might get into the ads and that copy is just doing terrible.
Yeah.
We might try to do a little switcheroo, switch the copy with another ad that's performing well and see if that fixes it, or is it the image? And there might even be times that we launch an ad and we have multiple different versions that have different copy, be it in the description or the I think it's called headline right now, or title, whatever you want to call it, different call to actions and all that kind of jazz, not only in like A/B testing but just in general analysis in terms of what's getting the most click-throughs on the funnel.
And that takes so much time into seeing what words or what phrases are really gonna target what audience. So we have a period of time that we do all this testing and research to figure out what is actually going to work for our clients and their products.
Yeah, and even adding on to that, there's definitely some products that have more of an educational space. There are products that you might be able to use the same ads, same copy and everything for 3 months. First month, you might see no sales. And then second month, all of a sudden you start making a bunch of sales. And it might just be because now you are in the front of the public's eye. And ultimately that does take good copy. It's that kind of subliminal marketing. You've seen it a few times. Even if you're scrolling through Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or whatever, ultimately you do see ads to some extent. Even if you're like, oh my God, it's an ad, and you scroll right past it, you still saw a glimpse of that ad. And maybe that ad pops up again in a video that you're watching, or you're watching a post and it's like, you have to watch this ad to continue the post. It almost puts you in a state of what I would say is like akin to like this decision fatigue. This ad has been shown to you in multiple different versions, or not ad. This brand has been shown to you in multiple different ad formats. So now, if you weren't considering that ad, or weren't considering that product, you're now thinking about that product an awful lot. And then it gets even more so if it's a product that fills a niche in someone's everyday life. Like I'm thinking one of our products coming up, Measure Gear, is a tape measure that kind of attaches to your wrist. I'm thinking in terms of like carpenters and like everyday people that are doing renovations, maybe even some construction workers and such. That's an amazing tool. And it's one of those tools that might take a bit to catch on, but when it does get out of that educational period where it's been in front of people and suddenly someone broke their tape measure and they're like, crap, I gotta go get another tape measure. Now Measure Gear's in the back of their head and they're like, oh, maybe I should check that one out finally. And you know,
and it's finding different selling points of that product to really grab someone's attention. Like, yeah, you might have 300 different measuring tapes lying around your house. I know I do, but it's a great gift for someone. It is attachable, so you're never going to lose it. Like I've lost all of my other ones.
That's a really good point. We were talking about this the other day whenever we were going into the back end of Facebook analytics, is the kind of targeting that you can do and adjustable copy that you can do as a result. So I'm just going to continue with Measure Gear because I personally think it's a really good product. If we're trying to say target people that have men in their life that have a birthday coming up, maybe we're trying to market it as a birthday present. Whenever we create an ad for those people that we target, we can use wording like, this is a perfect birthday gift for the guy in your life, and things like that. Ads are so targetable and adjustable, And once you know that audience and you know who you want to target, you can start playing around with certain audiences respond to certain words better.
Yeah.
So can you switch that out? And sometimes you might just throw out the copy altogether and might just make something brand new for that audience. You don't even adjust the old one. Ultimately, I wouldn't recommend that because there's a learning period every time that you completely change the copy. But there's some really interesting things there, and most people don't know how much you can really target online. Nevertheless, how you can like adaptively change the wording on the fly.
I know when I first got into copywriting, I was shocked by some of the language that resonated best with people, like BEST capitalized. People love that, or perfect with an exclamation mark. So some of the easiest words or some of the easiest language really sells products sometimes.
Well, do you think that is? So where do you think that comes from? Do you think that's more from the general public really liking those words? Do you think it's a celebrity, or is it something that like just a bunch of products are using and like that has just become the standard in most people's minds?
I think it comes down to it because it's super easy. It's really easy for BEST capitalized to stand out amongst a bunch of lowercase letters. And it's really easy for someone to see perfect and be like, oh, it probably is perfect, even if you know that product isn't perfect.
Yeah. And I think that's really interesting. It's something that we always bring up at 52 Launch is that there's a lot of bad products online, but they have good marketing. So they still sell. Yeah. We try our hardest that every product that leaves here is a really, really good product. It might not have absolutely everything we wanted, but it is a good product that the everyday consumer is really going to get a good use out of. So it's then meshing that market. If you can have a bad product and have really good marketing, but if you have a good product and terrible marketing, you're really not going to get anywhere. Marketing is what sells. And obviously there's ways that you can kind of go around that. You can, some of our old clients, like now they go to the beach on a daily basis and they go to football games and tailgate parties and all that kind of stuff. And they have a fantastic product that is selling like crazy right now. But ultimately that is a marketing strategy. That is something that like people don't realize. They're like, oh yeah, I'm just talking to my friends and everything. Door-to-door marketing is a strategy for a reason. But
going back to the weird words that you can use in marketing, in copywriting, if you go on Amazon at all and you just look at the listing and read the listing, the language makes absolutely no sense, but it sells. And it sells based on keywords, which is a whole other topic. I don't know if we want to go really deep into keywords right now.
Well, we can give a blanket overview of what keywords is. Basically, how you can look at keywords is that whenever you are searching in an algorithm, be it Amazon, Facebook, Google, all of those search engines, they have more factors than just keywords, but keywords is a sizable factor for a lot of these, and specifically when talking about Amazon. And what this is that maybe I'm looking for a keychain, for example. So I might go to Amazon and I might search keychain. Basically what Amazon is going to do is it's going to go through the listings that it has in its query, and then it's going to kind of pull everything up that has keychain somewhere in its title, description, or even backend description. Backend description is a section, or it might not be called backend description. I forget exactly what it's called. It's a backend of Amazon that no one sees. It's just you. But basically, you go in there and you can add popular misspellings. Like if your product is hard to spell, or like the product itself is hard to spell, you can put a couple common misspellings in there. You can put extra words. So maybe you're not necessarily a keychain, but you are adjacent to a keychain in some way. Maybe you're a key or something like that, and you're trying to say like this fits perfectly on every keychain. So maybe you add keychain to your backend tag.
The amount of times that people spell words wrong when researching things is insane.
Yeah, and
it's crazy.
It makes a difference. It's not always worth it if your product is super quick to the point and it's easy to spell. Then probably but like if you have like you're going into like 3-4 word product, or maybe even like a sentence to search for your product, then like misspellings are really important.
I was even doing a listing for coffee, and coffee spelled without 2 E's at the end and with an I had like almost a higher search volume than coffee spelled correctly. So
and sometimes it's going down to the market and everything. I ultimately look at like this is, if you're an avid coffee consumer in the morning or late at night, you're probably pretty tired if you're hooked on coffee that bad. So your brain is just going on autopilot and hoping to work. But going back to keywords searches through your listing, be it what you have in your title, description, or the back end. Even going onto your website, what text you have on your website. So going onto the keychain. I'm not sure what Google would pull up for keychain, but if I went on Amazon, a bunch of keychains would come up because they have keychain somewhere in there. And then I might start adding more keywords to it. So I might say red keychain. Now Amazon is going to look through and it's going to find things that have red and keychain in them. They don't necessarily have to be right next to each other. Keychain could be in the title and red could be in the description. But Amazon ultimately knows that you are looking for something like that. So it still might recommend that to you. I'm thinking like maybe it's a keychain with like a little, like one of those little leather tags that some of them have on. It's a red leather tag. So it's like keychain. And then in the description, it's like sturdy red leather tag or something like that. Amazon then knows that, and it knows that, okay, maybe he wants this. He's looking for a red keychain. This isn't exactly that, but we think this fits pretty well. The algorithm serves it up to me, and if I click on it, then the algorithm's like, okay, that was a good recommendation. If I don't click on it, then the algorithm's like, okay, that was a bad recommendation. Let's maybe not do that as much next time. Keywords are a whole thing that we could go down a giant rabbit hole on, but that's a overview thing. It's whenever you type something into a search bar, is how are you being found? And it's because you're saying things people are searching for.
Which makes it kind of funky when you're writing for any of it, because I'll come up with a draft for a listing of an item, and I'll look at the keyword list that we have, and I'll have to fit these random words in my paragraph, and sometimes they don't always make sense. Like you could make a listing for a title, and the title is going to be so weird looking, and it makes me so angry sometimes adding these keywords in, because it breaks the flow up, and people look at it and they're like, can you speak English? And I'm like, I try. But it just it's definitely hard to have someone see that copyright versus the website copyright, which is flowing beautifully and eye-catching, and basically everything that you learn in a standardized copyright world for the website to make the customer go there, buy the product.
And not to say you don't do this, but for example, you might be writing up a really elegant copyright for an Amazon listing and such. Then you toss that up to me or Nikki to kind of get a look at. You're like, guys, could you review this for me? Then we might spit back at you. We're just like, no, we need a bunch of keywords in here. So now the copywriter is looking at this like, now I have to go shove these keywords in there. And you have to get really weird and funky with your sentences. And
break them up. It makes no sense.
You walked that line of how can I be searchable and how can I be understood. And there's no magic formula there, but it's a very, very important skill in the online world, is being able to mesh those two things.
Yeah, definitely. Keeping sentences short and sweet help with that so much. It might sound super easy to keep something short and sweet, but it's actually so much harder to take a sentence that was 8 words and break that sentence down into 4 words, still having the meaning and still making it persuasive. So if you're watching this, I dare you to try that, because it's something I deal with every day, and it makes such a difference when you're able to make a 4-word sentence persuasive, keyword, eye-catching.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of like Amazon, like I'm thinking of Amazon listing, a few of them that I've seen now. When you go down to like the description, most Amazon descriptions have like in each feature, they have like a bold startup claim. It's completely in bolded text and everything and all capitalized to grab your attention. And sometimes it's like one word that means absolutely nothing, and you're like, huh? Other times it's like a 4-word sentence, like Sarah said. So something that I'm kind of noticing now is that a lot of people will use that bold thing as almost a keyword of sorts, or that 4, 5, 6 word sentences as a keyword search thing. And then whenever they go deeper into the description, so you might do like dash and then write more of a fluid sentence to explain what you mean by that point. It is weird. It looks really weird. And I think to the average consumer, if they were to see us write this, they would think we are completely insane. But if the average consumer was also going back and looking at what their past like 7 Amazon orders were, I guarantee there's one item in there that's exactly like that, that you read the description and you're just like, huh?
Yeah. If you scroll on Amazon looking at any product that you're going to buy and you just read the description of it, you're going to think that it was written by a 3rd grader, because it really is insane that Amazon has created this entire type of copyright. And they're extremely successful with it. So I think it's going to really change the whole future of copywriting, and I think it's going to put it in a whole different categorize, or it's going to create a whole different class, or that you have to take in college. And
marketing is really interesting, that there's always those trends you have to jump on for. Like hashtags came out of nowhere. No one thought hashtags were going to take off, and then now look, like Twitter, Instagram, if you're not using some sort of hashtag in your life, your page isn't doing well. If you're a business, you gotta use them. If you're starting from nothing, you gotta have a shit ton of friends, know an influencer, or really game the system. And now we're going over to this world of Amazon, where we have nonchalant, crazy sentences that are now huge selling points. Even like back-end SEO work, where you're trying to put in your keywords on the back end of your website so they search better. Even back then, like, they were having a bunch of misspellings and everything. Like if it was a weird brand, maybe European or something like that, where it was just, or even like a purposeful misspelling, you might put the proper spelling in there. And for a while, a lot of people said, no, that's never going to work. Now we look at Google and we go to the back end of some of these huge business websites, and you can kind of see that they have dozens upon dozens of misspellings and different things that people will search for. Even if they don't have that service, they know those people are adjacent to who they're looking for. But yeah, those definitely. Marketing waves, it's a fascinating thing. And it's also why I think marketing is so interesting, is that you never know it. If someone tells you that they are a master at marketing, they're wrong. There's
so many different avenues when it comes to marketing. Just take Evan and I, for example. He's more of the analyst and I'm more of the creative, but we mesh so well together to hopefully be extremely successful. But you need that engaging aspect for people to really care about the product, and then you need that data and those numbers to tell you if it's being successful. So both of them hand in hand are really the tool to creating a successful business, and they both can seem very broad and very easy to understand, because trust me, coming into it, I was like, I can put a couple of words together to create a sentence, but it's so much deeper than that. It's psychology, it's data, it's English, it's creative.
And as much as I would like to say as an analyst that I could predict everything coming my way, sometimes you just get lucky. And that's ultimately comes down to maybe you launch a product and the fad around that product or an adjacent product happens and your sales just skyrocket. There's no way as an analyst I could have predicted that. Well, I mean, sure, if that was my pure job of just following trends online, maybe I could come up with something and be like, yeah, I think in like 3 months this thing's really gonna blow up. But like, even then, you're betting on stocks. Not to say you can't predict stocks, but you very much are betting on how a stock is going to perform in terms of like a fad online. And I would say the fad is more volatile than the stocks. I would say fads are more volatile than like cryptocurrency, for example. They come and go. I mean, we've seen that wave of kind of like 90s nostalgia and everything that was really potent for a bit, and now it's sort of dying off. But you know, it comes in waves. It's such a weird thing to constantly try to figure out. You know, sometimes there's a little bit of imposter syndrome that you do something really good, you write a really good copy, or you target a really good way, and maybe it was just a test or a rough draft and it does fantastic, and you're just like, okay.
That's what it's gonna take. Yeah.
You know, like that was totally my plan.
Yep. So, I mean, I think that's a lot of what we do here at 52 Launch is something similar to that, just testing the waters and seeing what catches. But it's definitely very fun work, and it's great diving into the minds of humans and learning so much about different objects and products and sports and anything under the sun.
So I'm gonna give my background is I started off more on a creative background of doing like video work and video editing and everything, and then I really transitioned hard into doing more of the marketing analytics and everything. A few small businesses and everything that I helped out, that was something that I was slowly realizing is that it's very easy to get into marketing. Like, that is completely being realistic. Yeah, you might not get paid the best, but it is very easy to get into the marketing field, and it scales really well. I think it really comes down to, are you someone that thrives in a place that you can constantly learn and improve? Then marketing might be your thing. Or if you're someone that easily gets bored with something, might be marketing. Because as Sarah said, like, you are constantly researching something new. You are constantly trying to do new ad formats, new social media posts, and trying to follow what's going to be the next big social media. I mean, we're just seeing dozens upon dozens of new social medias come out on a daily basis. And it's like, okay, I heard a few inklings, like, nobody thought TikTok was going to blow up.
Then the pandemic hit.
Yeah, everybody was joking on TikTok. It transitioned from... Musically, I think it was called before, or
yes,
so it transitioned from Musically, where like a bunch of people were really uncomfortable because it was like kids singing and everything, and then, you know, it transitioned to TikTok, and everybody's just like, no, that's not going to go anywhere. Pandemic hits, and then now you have anybody from super young kids that are now influencers all the way to like super old people that just really enjoy some of the fun content. And
to people selling products and doing amazing with their businesses because of it.
And like, I'm just going to say this. A lot of people are apprehensive to try stuff like TikTok. It is a new thing. It is volatile. Do not get me wrong. But you have to look at it like this, is that anything you could think of, it's doing well on that platform. If it can fit in a short form format, and I'm not even going to say if, it's how you can fit it into a short form format, you will do well on there. Like, no one would think construction would do well on TikTok. But woodworking, construction, metalworking, glass blowing, manufacturing, all of those are really big things on TikTok. And a lot of it comes down to like how satisfying and how continuous and how loopable as the content is. And, you know, you get into a bunch of strategies and everything, but you really can't be intimidated from a new social media is new social media. I would say any social media outside maybe MySpace, people have probably said at some point, yeah, that's not going to do well. And I would say probably even MySpace. I mean, that's
There
before.
was a time and a place where MySpace was doing great.
Yeah, that's before my time. It's hard for me to sell, but there is probably people that are saying like MySpace isn't going to go anywhere. MySpace happened, and then you get into like more chat rooms and everything. You get into Facebook, you look at Twitter, you look at Instagram, TikTok now, even YouTube. Like all of those, there is always pushback that they aren't going to go anywhere. And guess what? There might be a new social media tomorrow. And we're just going to have to take the gamble. We're going to have to learn that social media, and that's marketing. It's understanding those platforms and how can we create content for them.
They always tell you when you start a job, you'll ask like, oh, what does the day-to-day look like? And marketing is like, you never know.
Yeah.
You never know what you're going to be dealing with. Like, yes, you can have a set of tasks that you need to complete, but everything is different every single day, and I think that's why I love it, because I'm never bored. I literally go home and I think about different like words or sentences I can like put together for products, and that sounds so lame, and if I told myself that like 5 years ago, I'd be like, you are a loser. But it is so much fun to like really dive down or dive deep into different ways you can sell things.
Yeah, and it's a puzzle in a certain way. Marketing is always trying to figure out how can we find that perfect puzzle piece.
It really is a puzzle.
And I don't know if you're super into puzzles. I'm super into puzzles. And
I hate puzzles.
Okay. So you found,
I like it with here.
Yeah, you found the type of puzzle you like.
Yeah.
And I always laugh because you're talking about how your boyfriend comes up with some of the copy and everything because he likes headlines and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's always super cool.
It's fun to play off of people and like think, because everyone thinks differently. No one thinks the same. And it's just, words to me are so fun. And like the way you can put them together is the puzzle that I like.
Yeah, so I think that's most of the points we wanted to talk about, is doing a little bit more of a deep dive of what Sarah does here at 52 Launch. Any potential clients that kind of go into the marketing department, at some point you're going to see Sarah's face kind of breaking down the copy and everything, and her trying to fully understand your product, because that's something we really want to do in the marketing department is sell your product how you want to, but also add in what we think is going to be marketable. And it's creating that mesh. So we have Sarah here that takes my world and takes your world and mixes them together to a place that's going to be really good online. I was going to, like, if I wrote a copy, it might look like a robot wrote it, because I'm going to be focusing on keywords. I'm going to be very bland.
We have the right brain, or the right brain and left brain over here. That's how the marketing team works.
Yeah, so ultimately you look at it like that, is that you're going to see us at some point if you decide to come on, or even if you just come in and visit. But yeah, we'll probably be stopping on a few more podcasts here in the future. We're slowly making the rounds of just getting to know other people in the space here at 52. It's a fantastic team that is growing by the day, with a lot of very interesting individuals with some very, very cool backgrounds.
Well, thank you for having me on it. This was fun.
All right, guys. We will see you next week. Make sure to like and subscribe, and you guys have been wonderful. See ya.
Bye.